a button.
I know, right? It is great. And we could be live right now. I usually like to give it like a second or so. Usually,
Sure.
there's an ad that plays beforehand. So who are tuning in, they don't see that we're chatting right now. But if they play it back, they'll see this whole part.
You'll see it. Okay, great. Amazing.
Yes. So let's get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Show Must Go On line. Today's guest,
Yes,
Lance Rubin. Thank you so much for coming.
of course, Shoshana. I'm so glad to be here. This is great.
And I realized I forgot to turn off the audio. For everyone watching at home, I'm checking your comments here. So right away, say hey to us. Any questions you might have, just like drop them here, and that's how you'll join the conversation.
Oh, cool.
So excited. So this is it's such a crazy time to be alive, to be in the arts, to be a writer. Like what's kind of going on right now with you?
Okay, great question. I agree. It is a crazy time. I have been in Brooklyn, although right at this moment, my wife and our two small children are in New Jersey at her parents'. Yes, we have all been quarantined, and so we united here. So it's nice to get out of Brooklyn. I just need to clarify that these are not Brooklyn window situation that we have in our apartment. Though some Brooklynites might, but we don't. Need to clarify.
Fancy Brooklyn shades.
Yeah, we've got our wood shutters just because everyone in Brooklyn needs them. So that was just to clarify because I felt like the need to point that out. But in general, I've been in, yeah, just so that people aren't distracted. Like, he had those in Brooklyn, which I guess maybe people might not be distracted by, but I would be, Shoshana. So I've been in Brooklyn. My wife Katie and our two small boys who are 2.5 and 6. So that alone, like being all together all the time, is just nuts. This is not an original statement I'm saying. Any parents of small children will tell you that it's just very surreal to go from like, wow, it's hard enough in a regular existence where your kids are going to daycare, preschool, kindergarten, as it may be. And then you're still taking care of them all the other times. But then to be responsible for all of the time is like, whoa. But I have been writing a book, and I've been able to kind of find a groove of, productivity. It's much less than normal times would be. But, I used to be someone who could not write in my home. Even before I had kids, I would always go to write in coffee shops. That's just what I do. I find when I'm at home, I can't get work done. But now I've been forced to, and you can adapt. It goes to show that when the only time you have is time at home, then you can be productive. So generally, I've had like the morning shift of getting to do work for a few hours while my wife is out with the kids. My wife is also a writer and an actor, and she's in grad school right now for fiction writing. So all of her grad school classes moved online, of course. She had classes 3 nights a week. She just finished her semester, which is great. I'm very proud of her. Yeah. But so that was, it was awesome. Yeah, Katie. But that was just like an added element. Like, she's going to school, and the Wi-Fi, the best Wi-Fi is in the front, like in our living room area. But the kids were there, so she couldn't be there when they're still awake. So she would be in the bathroom because her bedroom Wi-Fi is not up to snuff. We're working on that. So she'd be doing her grad school classes in the bathroom these past months. So that's what she's doing. And I mean, and that's it. Yeah, I get some writing down. Then I'm with the kids while Katie's getting writing and reading and work done, and making all the meals and cleaning up. So much cleaning. It's just always cleaning.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, for sure.
The toys are out, the toys are back in, wipe down the table. Okay, time for lunch, make grilled cheese, whatever. It's, again, this is not an original experience or unique experience, but that's where I'm at. Yeah.
I could only imagine. I have so many thoughts. I'm trying to figure out where to go with this, because for anyone quarantining on your own versus with a family has its own benefits and downfalls, right? Like, you either have a lot of people or you've got no one else. So those are like thoughts. Then add on top of that working, which is a blessing, but also a lot of work. And then to be like, having the kids around, it's just, there's so much. And it's
There's so much. But Katie and I, my wife, were just talking the other night. We're like, we don't know what it would be like to be alone during this. If you have to be alone, or any other variety of circumstances with a roommate, like you're saying, I think each one comes with its own perks and downfalls and downsides. And, everybody's just going through it, their own unique journey during this time.
Yeah. I came, I'm out here.
Okay. What? Yeah. You're West Coast.
I am. Right? So I of course live in New York normally. But I live with my wonderful grandma, who is now 91 years old.
Amazing.
Which is such a blessing. But the day after Broadway closed, my boyfriend lives here in Washington State, and it was like, should I go out there? Like, yeah, I guess so. And obviously we had no idea. Like, I only packed for like, a few weeks. Like, Broadway was supposed to be closed for a month, which was absurd and never going to happen. But, you don't know. And so I came out here. There's a dog, which is like the best thing, and I love Slim so much. And I just feel very grateful that like it was pretty clear, like right from the start, that I should just go, right? Like there wasn't like oh, should I say like and then I was gonna maybe go back for her birthday, and like there was just this gut feeling like I want to celebrate her birthday for years to come. I don't want anything to be in the way of that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So how's your grandma doing?
She's great. We FaceTime sometimes.
Good.
I'll have to FaceTime her for Shabbat. We usually Shabbat FaceTime.
Oh, that's so nice.
I don't know if you've FaceTimed with anyone who is of the elderly generation, but it'll be like, she'll be like this, and you'll see like her eye, and it's like, grandma, tilt it down. No idea. Zero. So she'll be like this, or she'll like tilt it down, and all I can see are her playing cards. It's amazing.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
It is a blessing. It is constant happiness. Yes.
Yeah. 91-year-old FaceTiming. It's a beautiful thing.
It is. Yeah. And I want to say hi to Nancy. She wants to hear about your book. We will definitely get into your book. Don't you worry. I just wanted to like give you a heads up that we have like a few things that are locked in the brain of like, we will get through these things. And the books, I should say, really are, are on the list. So, yes. And Mama Medney is here saying that she knows what it's like to be alone. Yeah, it's tough. It is tough to be quarantining by yourself.
Absolutely. My heart goes out to you. Yeah.
For sure.
At the same time, though, I envy that you could just like sit and read a whole book, start to end. But I also totally get what you're saying. That well, I don't know. You haven't said anything, Mama Medney, but I can imagine. This is that it's lonely to be alone for we're on day 62, day 63, I think.
Wow, look at you. I would have no idea what day of anything.
I think I saw a tweet that said day 60, so I don't know when that was, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 days ago. So I'm just adding on to them.
Yeah, for sure. And, these live chats, it started as a way to, I was like, well, we don't know how long we're going to be here. Like, I should do something, right? I should do some way to like, communicate with the community. And then like, the Broadway Bounty Hunter album was coming out, and I was like, oh, that would be fun to chat with people about. And then it was just like, oh, well, we're going to be here for a long time. Like, this is now a series. The show must go online. Like, hello, everyone.
It's amazing. I'm so glad you're doing it. And that has been one of the coolest parts of just seeing the way everyone's adapting to this time creatively when we're forced to kind of figure out how to make art under these conditions. And that's been cool. There's been a ton of pop culture reunions. Yeah. Basically, any movie or TV show that you always were hoping for a reunion, it's happening.
No, I've been catching up on Parks and Rec before I watched the reunion, because I only watched like the first like 2 seasons, and then I like, life got in the way and I forgot. And then I was going to watch the reunion, and my friend Julia was like, but then you'll get all the spoilers. Like, I would wait.
Yeah, I think that's good advice.
Yeah. So have there been any for you that have like specifically been really exciting?
The Parks and Rec one was great.
Nice.
My brother had sent me, Josh Gad has this new show, Reunited Apart. So Back to the Future is one of my all-time favorite movies. So they had a Back to the Future reunion. Loved it. Yeah, which ended with a song from Back to the Future, the musical.
Yes. Which
was fun.
So excited.
I'll believe it when I see it that movie would make a good musical because it's such a perfect movie. I worry, but that was still fun to get a taste of that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's it. I saw that there's an Office reunion on John Krasinski's Some Good News YouTube show. I haven't watched that yet, but I would enjoy that.
Yeah, let me tell you, the Some Good News is like this weekly thing of joy. It really is. Constant fun. Highly recommend.
I only watched episode 1. I need to watch more. Yeah, it's such a noble effort to try and bring positivity and joy during this time. It's all very much appreciated.
Yes, for sure. So,
I hope people are getting joy from this. I hope we're doing that too, Shoshana. Right now.
Yeah, they're gonna write in, no, this is awful. We're not having fun.
That news is a downer. Stop talking about pop culture reunions.
Yeah, right. Now, maybe what they came here for. Who knows? I like to see where this conversation goes. It could go anywhere.
Exciting thing about it.
I would love to start, I guess, this part of the conversation about the Broadway Bounty Hunter album release and how much fun that like YouTube Live was. Like I was dancing here with our dog. We were just like jamming out. It was amazing.
I'm so glad you had fun. I had so much fun too. That was a really joyful, definitely one of the highlights of the lockdown experience so far. It was just so nice to kind of go back to a time when we were making art and made this show that we loved so much, and then to get to share that with everybody, and then to have everybody who loved the show and come re-experience it again on YouTube. It obviously wasn't exactly the same as being all together in the same room in a theater, but it was very close. Oh, have I lost you?
You are paused.
You've frozen, but
let's see.
Okay, great. We made it through. It's claiming my internet connection. So let's see. All right. We're great. So I was saying, just to go back to that time, and to obviously we weren't all together in real life, but to kind of create that feeling of being all together, listening to that music, just jamming out together was really nice. And I had the YouTube chat going, and then the cast was up on a Zoom on mute, just so we could all hear the music, but everyone just moving like that. And yeah, it was great. I mean, I feel very proud of that show. I love that show. And it was so miraculous that we were able to make an album that will exist forever. And the album came out so great. Huge shout out to Ian Keggy, to Charlie Rosen, to Joe Iconis for writing it and for co-producing the album. But I think they did a great job, and the cast and band as well, obviously, were amazing. And so it just makes me happy that will live on, and new people can who didn't get to see the show will get to experience it that way. But I'm glad you were having fun that night, Shoshana, out there in Washington State.
Yes.
Yeah, because you were a big part of that experience too. I feel like you really had awesome interviews. I feel like you were very present.
Thank you.
Often, times during the run. That's where I first really got to know you, and we appreciated all the positivity and enthusiasm you were bringing to that process. Really,
it's easy to be Slim. I wish. Hold on, I'm gonna try to see if you can see here. Slim just walked. Oh no, he's walking away. But Slim, my cute dog.
Slim, hey,
it's just running around right now.
Yeah.
And he's out the door again. Well, that's fine. He can just chill.
Then come back in a little bit.
I love him so much. He can do no wrong. But
were you close with Slim before this, or have you really bonded?
No, this was our first encounter, except for Zoom beforehand, and it's just like love at first sight. Like everything.
So nice.
Yeah, he is. It's just like, it's so nice. I will get back to Broadway Bounty Hunter for
No,
a second, but I love, there's something so pure about dogs, and like they just love you, right?
yeah,
They don't
yes.
they don't care about anything else. Like the other day I was having like a really bad day, and I actually had to like cancel a live interview. Like it was just not, it wasn't syncing up. And he
Yeah.
like came over and laid on my lap, and it's just like, it's nice to feel, even if you are alone, like without another person, having an animal, amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I think I remember that first month of New York City, all of the animals that were in shelters, like, were all adopted.
Yeah.
And that was one of the silver linings of this. And
For sure.
and your story with Slim is a silver lining. Like, it's nice to hear that. Like, you're bonding, you're having this time with this dog you wouldn't have even met maybe for a little while.
Exactly.
Longer. And that's nice. Those are the little stories to hold on to, because there's certainly enough bad stuff in the news and all around us that it's really nice to think about the connections happening and relationships deepening. I mean, I definitely feel with my wife and my kids, like, going through this all together, it's inevitably we're getting closer and going, it's just
Exactly.
together more, and it's just gonna happen. You're getting closer, and it's really nice.
Yeah, and all these like little experiences, or like the small things like ordering pizza in, or just like having like a movie night, or we've been doing like a Marvel marathon, and like something to look forward to,
Yeah. Yes. I feel like we need to do even more of that, because sometimes our brains are just spinning from just like the daily upkeep of existence, that then you don't plan those things, and then you're like, where is the joy? I don't know where the joy is.
I know.
This is hard. But I think that's exactly it. Just the more you can plan things to look forward to, even if they're not vacations or, the usual things you look forward to. But even if it's just, Friday, this day we still call Friday, is movie day. Exactly. Or Friday at 5 p.m. I get to talk to Shoshana. That'll be fun. No, it's true. And just scheduling these things, I think, is important.
For sure. And to go back to Broadway Bounty Hunter for a moment, like, not just for a moment, we will talk about it, I'm sure, for quite a few minutes here. But it's such a special show. Joe Iconis in general has just been this like bright light in my life, that like starting Be More Chill was the first like opening night I got to cover, and then but through another organization, and then Broadway Bounty Hunter was the first like off-Broadway show that I got to cover for bwaySHO.
Oh, that's amazing. We were the first. That's great. That's great.
And that, so like, to have those two go like, hand in hand, and it's just like everyone in that Iconis and family have just been so welcoming. Actually, my friend Margie and I, who's one of the producers on Broadway Bounty Hunter, big fan, we were just talking about like, it's just such a good group of people. Like, you listen to the music, it's good. You go to the shows, you build this community. My friend Cindy here said summer 2019 was such a magical time.
Yeah, I agree, Cindy. Yeah, for sure.
Like, there is something bigger than us that you feel when you're in this like community.
That's nice. Yeah, I totally agree. I think there is, I first met Joe in 2005, and I've kind of gotten to experience the slow evolution of what is now Iconis and family. And it's just really cool that, we're still doing concerts, and that it's just to watch it change and adapt and welcome new people in. And, I do think we've all performed together so much that does kind of read for audiences. They feel that kind of camaraderie, and which is really cool, because I think there are times when we're not even thinking of it like that. And we do a concert, and then afterwards people are like, oh, that was so great. We're like, oh yeah, like we just start to take it for granted because now we know each other and we've been doing shows. But it is a really unique, special thing. And although I will say, you're saying everyone seems like good people, don't believe it. They're all really like behind the scenes jerks. Everyone from Joe down, just like unpleasant. As soon as anyone is around, as soon as all the audience members leave.
Right. Once we go home, you guys are just like.
Yeah, it's like I usually leave very quickly because it's very unpleasant to be in all of their company. So
yeah,
just want to clear that up.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that. Like every time I speak with like Joe and Lauren and Jason.
You've been around enough. Yeah, you sense the undercurrent. You're like, well, these are bad people, actually.
Painful, really.
Yeah. So that I can finally set the record straight.
Yes.
Let
the record be, I'm trying to make a Broadway Bounty Hunter record.
There's a spin record joke in there. Yeah, it's been.
It was spinning in my head, but I couldn't execute.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I barely did too. I just thought I'd spin that record. I couldn't.
Yeah.
Couldn't make the final connection. But no, they are great people, and it's just a nice. I do think one of the main pieces of advice I give to younger people and all people who are pursuing creative fields is that, like, when I was young, you imagine that it's like you're going to be discovered, and your joy as an artist is going to be that moment when the big famous director casts you in something, whatever, to use a bad example. But point being that I think most of the joy I've taken from my creative career is in the joy. It's in those relationships you form with your peers, and when you have a genuine creative connection and a genuine similar sensibility, that is what really sustains you. That is, the being spotted by a famous director or whatever the equivalent of that is. Those things might happen, they might not, and they will come and go, but they're ultimately kind of fleeting. The real stuff on the journey is like these friendships and these creative collaborative relationships. Kids, whether you're in middle school or high school, are kind of like, oh, I can't wait until I'm big, until this, that. But I would say, look at the people who are your peers now in college too. Look at those people. Like, these could continue to be your people, and that's ultimately going to be what you cherish the most in a career. And so I bring that up in relation to Iconis family, because those are some of the relationships where I feel like, wow, this is like why I do this, and to be on a stage with people and know they have my back, and that we trust each other and can really make cool stuff together that people appreciate is rarer than I would have thought, and I appreciate it more all the time.
Yeah, even as I've gone into this career more, I found friends from like high school or college. Like, before, I was a sports reporter, so this is like a very different thing. I guess all entertainment, but a different sector.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did Friday Night Lights in West Texas. Very fun. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was. I was the Game of the Week reporter. It was pretty cool.
Oh wow! And it's like just every bit as intense.
Oh my God!
As you imagine.
Yeah, and like watching Friday Night Lights, the TV show, and reading the book, like, you're like, I wonder how much of that is still there, and like part of it is maybe exaggerated a little, but like, is it?
Yeah.
Like, when there were like the big rivalry weeks, like, I usually covered like the smaller schools, but the big rivalries, right? So like, they might have like a smaller population than like these big 5A schools like Odessa and like Permian, which like the books were about, or the book was about, which like that game was crazy. Just like tailgates everywhere, like signs like throughout Odessa and West Texas, and like,
it's just like insane to think about that much pressure being put on these high school kids,
I went to the freshman game, like on Thursday, they have like the freshmen play each other of the rivalry week. And like, the parents were gonna get in like a fight, and people had to like pull, and I'm like, they're freshmen in high school.
Right. It's getting that intense over these 14-year-olds tackling together. But
crazy. But also, like, cool to see the community. Like, I got really close with the people in Big Spring, Texas, which, like, you would never know about. It's, like, a small town, but, like, still some people who I keep in touch with and just, like, are genuinely, like, incredible people.
Oh, that's so cool. I like that connection between kind of the bonds you can form in sports and the bonds you can form in theater or other pursuits. Yeah. It's all the same. It's all community. It's all love.
Yes. And just like the way it all kind of fits together is like, I thought like my dream was to be an Olympic reporter. Like that was like for many, many years. Like I went to London 2012. I was a media volunteer in Rio 2016.
Oh.
Like
Wow.
this was like, and my mom's from Brazil. I'm half Brazilian, which is pretty
Okay.
cool.
Awesome.
And like that was an incredible experience. But then I realized through this like friend group how much I love theater, and that like I just, you know, didn't renew my contract, drove across the country from Texas to New York, went to Broadway Con, saw Hamilton in Puerto Rico, and then like started bwaySHO.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your journey. Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wait, go back to the, so wait, you saw Hamilton, Puerto Rico. How did that fit into your journey?
Because I am obsessed with Hamilton, you could say.
Yes.
Very much.
Show.
Love that show. And I had some friends, and we decided that we would go to Puerto Rico as like the four of us for like when they were having that run. And my birthday is January 14th, and Lynn's birthday is January 16th. So I was like, let's go on January 16th. That would be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like it really was like one of the craziest like months of my life. Like I packed up, I drove across the country, then Broadway Con was the next day. So I did that for 3 days, and then it was my birthday, and then I flew out to Puerto Rico. Then we saw Hamilton, and then Lynn retweeted a photo I took of him at the curtain call, which was like, click boom, the best thing.
That's amazing.
So and then actually, this is so funny. It does kind of circle back because the day after I got home from Puerto Rico was the Be More Chill conversation at the Guggenheim. And it was so cold and windy. Like it was just like, I remember people were like, be more warm, right? Like it was like the worst. It was the worst. But I had this like gut feeling, right? Sometimes you just have this like feeling like I should go to this, right? Like the tickets were $25. Like Laura Haywood, Broadway girl, like had sent an email, and I was like, this just feels like one of those moments that could change things, right? When you get to like talk to people face to face.
Yeah.
And, like I went, and it was amazing, and I met, you know, Joe and George and Jen, and like then I remember Joe remembered me when I interviewed him, I think at the Be More Chill opening night party. And I was like, okay, this is a man who like takes the time to talk to people. I'm going to follow the career.
Wow. Wow. That's wild. I love that.
Yeah. Who could have thought that this story from like Texas sports would like actually work so perfectly into this timeline?
Yes. Brilliant segue. That's so wonderful. So you feel like that gut feeling was right. I mean, obviously to go to that conversation, but in general, the path you're on feels good.
Yeah. You know, there are some times, especially now with like the world not functioning super well, but then like I've had a lot of people over the last few days reach out to me and say like these live interviews are just like keeping their spirits up, and like they love my interview style, and it's very encouraging in a very sad time. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that.
Thank you. And now this has become too much about me. Let's go back to you.
It's fun. I like, you know, it feels more like a conversation if we're both sharing.
Very true. I do like that though. Like sometimes these interviews I've noticed are too much interviews, and I try to use the word chat more because I like it more to feel more comfortable. Yeah.
No, it feels great. Very comfortable.
Love it. So let's hear, I want to go to your origin story, and then kind of like how that journey with Iconis and family like led up to Broadway Bounty Hunter.
Yes, great. So I had always kind of been into acting since like age 8 or 9. I was in a something called Summer Theater Workshop in my town, which was like a summer production. It was like medleys of songs. And I sang Can't Help Myself, the Motown song, Sugar Pie Honey Bunch. I had that solo, and I sang my heart out, and people liked it, and I was bit by the bug, and then I was like, I want to do this. I'm going to keep doing this. Yeah. So I did. I went to French Woods Performing Arts summer camp. I was in musicals at high school, and then I was a theater major at college. and yeah, and then came out to New York City. In my brain, I was like, it sounded like I was about to say I came out in New York City. I did not, as of yet, come out, but I did come down from Rhode Island to New York City, circa 2004, and then I started auditioning, working a lot of random part-time jobs, which was all very exciting at first. I met Joe, 2005, doing a reading of Black Suits at NYU, which was his thesis musical reading, and I also met SweetTooth at that time. I also met Andy Golden at that time. So that was obviously a very formative experience and moment. And I instantly loved Joe's music, of course. It was amazing. And then at the same time, I was also doing some comedy stuff at Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. I had a sketch comedy show with my buddy Ray Munoz. And I was just auditioning, doing it, and to go back to what I said earlier about like creative relationships and friendships being the best stuff, like all the stuff I loved the most was the stuff either that I was doing with Joe, shows like the Blood Song of Love or the Black Suits, or the sketch show that I had written with my buddy Ray. Generally, I loved the stuff where I was really given a voice in the collaboration, whether it was me co-writing it or in the case of Joe, it was obviously always a very collaborative environment, with John Simpkins usually directing, and there was just like a space there to bring my creative voice, and that was the stuff I really loved. But then so much of the stuff acting there was not always room for my creative voice. I did not love auditioning in general, especially for on-camera stuff, even though I really wanted to be on TV and to be in movies. I found that I generally was bad at on-camera auditioning.
You're great on camera right now, just to throw that out there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there was a self-consciousness I had that I never kind of got over for on-camera auditioning, that like I would be so aware of my face and I couldn't kind of be present in the same way I could on a stage. It's very interesting. I think about that often. What was going on there? And if, now my acting is mainly I'm writing, but I act like in Joe's concerts and I still do voiceover stuff. But I just wonder, I was like, would I be less self-conscious now because there's like less high stakes in my head?
Right.
I don't know. But all that aside, cut to like 2011, and that was like a moment when I was just feeling just not good about my acting career, and I wasn't like enjoying it. Like I just like was getting a lot of auditions for things I didn't necessarily like, and I also didn't like the lifestyle of being an actor, getting the auditions, and you couldn't really have a routine in your life because it's always about getting the auditions the night before. It's 6 o'clock and just rearranging your whole schedule. Some people thrive on that, but I was just like, I don't like this. I like to know what my day is.
Yeah.
And so
I'm gonna close the door. I don't know if Slim is very
Too
distracting.
much. Tell Slim, I mean, really distracting. I know you love him, and I do too. Finally, we're alone. Some things I need to tell you guys. Oh.
Okay, I'm back. Okay.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Broadway SHO Online. So, long story short, I was just like disillusioned by my acting career, and I was just like, I don't know, this isn't working. My agent and manager dropped me in the same month because we weren't working there. And so 2011 was a really big year because in January of that year, I sang at a benefit with Joe and Jason. And that was the benefit where afterwards we were talking, we thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to write a musical for Andy Golden? How come no one's written like a great starring role for Andy Golden? So that was January 2011. So we started working on that and like taking the idea seriously, the musical that would eventually become Broadway Bounty Hunter. And then also around that time, I read The Hunger Games for the first time. I was really like blown away by it, and I just thought it was so fun and so page-turny. And then I was just looking for somewhere to put all this pent-up creative energy, and that was when I started writing my first young adult novel in April 2011.
Wow.
So that was when things started to shift, and I think having the Broadway Bounty Hunter project with Joe and Jason was so helpful because the idea of like, I'm not going to be an actor anymore was like terrifying. And it took me probably like 2 to 3 years to really kind of let go of the idea, or to embrace the idea, oh, I could be mainly a writer. And that's, different than this childhood dream I've had in my head. But, I was enjoying the writing, and I was finding fulfillment in the writing, and in a lot of the same ways I was with acting, storytelling, and just using the creative parts of your mind. And so, all right. So back to having Broadway Bounty Hunter, it was so helpful because it wasn't like, I was detaching from Joe and Jason entirely. Like, it was so nice to have this thing we were still making, this way we were still engaging creatively. And of course I was still doing Joe's concerts all throughout, but when there were shows I wasn't doing or things I wasn't involved in from an actor standpoint, it was really nice to have that, that writing project together. Yeah. So yeah, that's the very kind of rambly short version.
Yeah.
Of how I found myself moving from actor to writer.
I love that.
Yeah, thanks.
It has that same kind of thing that I was talking about, that I had this like whole goal, and then I realized this other thing that made me happier and that like fit better. And sometimes you just have to listen to that voice, and to everyone who's watching now, like if there's a path that you're on but it doesn't feel right, like you got to listen to your gut. You got to listen to your gut.
I totally agree. And it was, yeah, it's weird when especially if you have a childhood dream, my dream, I just always for decades, like I'm going to be an actor, so I'm going to do. So then when actually being an adult and being an actor and being like, I don't know if I like this, was so jarring. And everyone around me knew me as an actor. And so then I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm writing a novel, and people, some people are supporters. Some people are like, okay, sure, buddy, you're writing a novel. And just having to grapple with that shift in identity,
right?
I'm Lance, I'm an actor. That's what I do. That's very tricky, but I would encourage people, you got to listen to what your heart and gut are telling you, because, 8-year-old me only knew so much, frankly,
Right.
You didn't know what's, he's just, and teenage me too, like, reading Entertainment Weekly, it's like you have this idea of what something's going to be like, and then when you're actually in it, it might be different, or it might completely live up to all the fantasies. But you have to leave space in your mind for the idea that you might actually enjoy doing something else more.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think especially during this time that everyone is reassessing everything, right? And you hope that Broadway comes back in a different way. Broadway's coming back. I'm just like, it has to.
We'll be back. Yes.
Right. Like there's. It's almost like annoying when people are like, if Broadway, like, no, Broadway's coming back. I couldn't imagine
just when
right.
and how that evolution happens, but yes, of course it will be back.
Yeah, and things have to change, and like this is actually a perfect segue, because Lance, for everyone at home who hasn't read this article, I posted it earlier, but I've attempted to explain my feelings for the industry's critic line, and it was sometimes hard to put into words because people are like, well, you're too close to it. Like, we just know how much you love Be More Chill and Broadway Bounty Hunter, so like, is your voice so valid? And I was like, well, that's not fair, because like, I love a lot of musicals, right? I love Hamilton, and I love Dear Evan Hansen. I love the ones that got the positive critique. But I'm also like obsessed with the other ones that weren't as positive. So shouldn't there be another voice out there? Shouldn't there be women and people of color and different voices?
Yes.
And like your description and like the way you were able to go from like, this was personal, but also like, this is happening to so many other people. And let me give you like site A and site B of why this should change.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad. Thank you. Yeah, it was that was a very hard time when we were just a lot of weird cognitive dissonance too, because we were doing the show, audiences were loving the show. And I'm not saying that in like a cocky, arrogant way. I'm just saying we were there. People were laughing their heads off, coming out so moved, like feeling the show. So there's that. And then we're getting this review that like did not match that at all. And that would be fine if that one review in the New York Times didn't have so much power, if the industry still didn't look at like the New York Times as the meter of like, should this show go on or should this show end right now? So it was really hard, but I felt like I wanted to try and articulate the kind of strangeness of that and the injustice of that, which I know is happening to so many other pieces of art all the time. Yeah. But theater is unique because it's not, you don't have 10 to 15 points of view. Well, you do have 10 to 15 points of view, and some critics really enjoyed our show, which was wonderful. And we so appreciated that. It's such a relief to be like, oh, great. I'm not like losing my mind because the difference between what the show's, how the show seems like it's going and what this guy's saying could really make you very confused and feel almost gaslit. You know, it's like a form of gaslighting, that's a good whether intended or not. So you have these other critics out there, but still, like investors, again, it's like the one indicator is how that review goes, and that just seems so bizarre to me that I felt like I needed to explain that. And it was nice to hear other people feeling like, oh, we've been through this too with this show. There's so many people, like, this is not an out of the ordinary experience. This is probably the norm most of the time. And I think it's problematic. And so I think solutions do include just diversifying who the critics are. You know, many critics tend to be just older white males. So that's a problem, you know, because this is all opinions. It's just, so at the end of the day, these are opinions. This is how art is so subjective. This is how this piece of art struck this person. And that's also frustrating when critics don't, you know, put it that way. Somebody I've talked to with my wife Katie a lot, and she's always saying something that I found very smart. She's just like, she loves reviews when critics say like, this is how I feel, but I understand A, B, and C. And to be fair to Ben Brantley, like his Be More Chill reviews were that. He was at least saying like, hey, I'm an old fogey, maybe I don't get it. I mean, his reviews still sucked and were like so mean for no reason. He reviewed it twice in a row, really mean.
Doesn't make any sense.
So stupid. But, you know, he at least said like, hey, I don't know, you know, and so at least giving that space to be like, I might be totally stupid about this because I'm old. You're like, yeah, Ben, you are, and you're being mean. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm still thinking like how to solve this. Obviously, theater has much bigger problems at this moment, but
But I do feel like, I mean, as the problems are so big right now, but this is gonna make such a big, you know, impact moving forward of what shows get to be produced because of the way things are changing and because of the limited access of theater, and who knows when we'll be back in a theater, whether it's off-Broadway, on Broadway, at like 54 below, right? Like we don't know any of that. So if not now, when?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And something I've always wondered, and maybe it's just me, right? Like I'm new to this business and I'm a reporter and not a critic. And I like to make that very clear, right? Like I like to ask questions and let the writer, the performer tell their story and then share as a reporter what I observe, but not critique. That's just like I'm positive only.
Yeah. Refreshing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I've always felt like the articles, the critics should come out the next day. Like, why should you ever have a night where you've worked so hard to have an opening night, this giant party, like this wonderful experience, and then like halfway through the night, everyone's sad?
It's the stupidest thing. It makes no sense. I mean, yeah. And then part of you wants to be like, well, let's just agree not to look at it. But no, that's impossible. Yeah, I agree. It's so if you have this opening night party and then the review comes out early on in the party, it feels like a big old waste of money because everyone's just bummed.
Right.
You don't really care about drinks or appetizers or anything. Yeah, I don't understand that either. I agree.
Cool.
At least. Yeah. Because that exists, I was going to say at least release it at like 1 a.m, but you know, people would just be nervous waiting for it. I don't know what the solution to that is, but I think it's really obnoxious tradition.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always wondered if, because they're always, I'm now blanking on the actual word, but like that you can't post it until like 8 or 10, whatever time it actually,
Right.
But
yes, I'm blanking on the word too, but yes, they say,
why not just have it like 8 or 10 a.m. the next day, right? Like, okay, so
right.
you have to wake up early after your party to find out, or you can choose to sleep in. It's one of those things that has just bothered me so much.
Yeah. It seems like a trivial thing, but it's not, because
Right.
when people come together and make this thing, and then this is the time when you're going to celebrate what you made, to then throw in this review that, as much as you want to just be like, well, whatever, it's one person's opinion, it unfortunately does in theater carry so much weight.
Yeah.
The weight of, will this show continue or not? Will we keep getting paid to do this or not? Will we keep getting the joy of making this thing and doing it for audiences or not? Then it's ridiculous. You need those celebratory moments, no matter what the fate of the show is. And so I agree. That's like a sub heading of things to change, other than the bigger problem.
Right.
But at least if you're going to demolish a show, do it the next morning.
The little things.
The little things. I totally agree. I kind of forgot about that element of it and of that night for Broadway Bounty Hunter, which, got a little ruined.
Yeah, because when I'm putting together these, the promotion for these live chats, or like going through the videos or going through the photos, and like seeing the photo of like me with the three of you, it was like, oh, that was so great, but also I knew it was so sad, right? Like I had these conflicted feelings of being like, I don't want to ask for this photo because I know that they're probably not feeling as happy as they were when we did the interviews. But also,
that their show wouldn't continue. Yeah.
Right. Just like I have the three of you there, and like I love what you've done, and I want to share that with everyone. It's just like, I feel like I could go on and on about how I feel injustice for you guys for so many things.
That's nice. It's so tricky. There's so many injustices in the world bigger than that one, but
yes.
We are, you make a show, you spend years making it, and then it's done. So that's, so that is an injustice. I will include that, but
yeah. And I always like to just say that it's valid to have, there are like the big things, right? Like that Flint doesn't have functional water, and that like the COVID crisis, but it's also valid to have these like personal things that hurt you because you cared about it and you put a lot of time into it.
It is. Well said. I agree. Yeah.
So let's go from Broadway Bounty Hunter into your writing life.
Yeah. Da, 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 da. This is my most recent book. It's called Crying Laughing. I love it. You will too. Probably, if you like good things. This one came out in November. I am proud of it because it started out in a very different form. I'd written 300 pages of something that I ended up scrapping that had like similar themes as this book, but different. And this book, I will tell you, you didn't ask me to plug it, but I'm going, Shoshana. I'm going.
Do it.
This is about 15-year-old Winnie Friedman, who knows she is hilarious, but the rest of the world does not know. She's a comedy nerd. She's obsessed with comedy, and she had been encouraged by her dad to do stand-up comedy at her bat mitzvah when she was 13. So she did, and she bombed at her own bat mitzvah. Horrible. So when the book starts, she's 15 and she's sworn off performing comedy. She just writes it and doesn't really share it with anybody. But then Evan Miller, the so-called funniest guy in school, Winnie's not sure if she agrees with that, but people think he's the funniest guy in school, laughs at one of Winnie's jokes in the cafeteria and tells her she should join the improv troupe. So the book is kind of her kind of coming into her own as a comedian, embracing that side of herself that did initially want to perform. However, at the same time, her dad, who's her comedy hero, is diagnosed with ALS, serious, brutal disease, horrible. So those two things are going on at the same time. And it's a funny, sad book.
Funny,
sad book for you to enjoy.
Nancy saying, love it, so funny.
Is that Nancy Cisco?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Nancy. You need to know, Shoshana, Nancy Sisko is the editor of this book. Hi, Nancy. I'm sorry, I can't see the comments because I don't have it up to see them. But Nancy, you're the best. And when I talked about a 300-page version I scrapped, that was essentially because Nancy was like, this one isn't very good. Heard at the time, but ultimately it was for the best because she helped get to this version, which I really like so much better.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Nancy. And Nancy, thank you for your email. I'm going to respond. I just haven't been able to yet today. It was a great email. Response.
Awesome. And do you have something you'd like to read for us?
Yes, I'm just going to read a little bit.
Please.
But, this being a theater online YouTube show, I'm just going to read part where Winnie is playing theater games for the first time. Improv theater games that I think will be familiar to some people watching this. Chapter 8. I'll try not to read any parts that would be confusing if you haven't read chapters 1 to 7.
Sure.
All right, Mr. Martinez says, let's circle up and start with a quick game of name ball so we can learn the names of all our new folks and they can learn ours. Who wants to start? Name ball? Have I magically teleported back to kindergarten? I got this, Rashonda says. She bends the fingers of one hand into claws and holds them up for all to see. Rashonda, she says. Then she winds up and flings her arm like she's throwing something across the stage as she says, Dan! A nerdy-looking dude with glasses, mutton chops, and a Game of Thrones t-shirt pretends to catch whatever's been thrown, shouting, Dan! As he does. We are playing catch with an imaginary ball. Okay. Dan holds the ball with one claw hand before putting another hand next to it and expanding his non-existent ball into something volleyball size. He hurls it with two hands toward us. Laylee, he shouts. Laylee, she says as she pulls the ball of air to her chest. She compresses it down to the size of a pea, held aloft between her two fingers. She flicks it up into the air. Winnie! I stick my palm out to catch the fake pea. Winnie, I say, as I imagine it landing on my hand like a raindrop. Laylee says. You're supposed to catch it the way it's thrown to you, Evan says from across the circle. So like between your fingers, Laylee says, the way I threw it. Oh, I say. That's all right, Mr. Martinez says. We didn't even explain the rules yet. Now we all know. It's really fun to be made an example of. I hope it happens at least 10 more times because it doesn't make me want to puke at all. I'll end there. Thank you, Shoshana. Thank you for being a wonderful audience.
Bravo, bravissimo.
Thank you. But yeah, it was. Yeah. I read that part. It was just so fun. I've done improv since I was a teenager as part of, my love for acting, and it was so fun to get to write about it in a book and to kind of think about those experiences again and playing those games for the first time, and just all these things that are kind of weird rituals that as actors and theater people we kind of just get used to and it becomes normal. But remembering those first moments, like, wow, this is okay. We're doing this. This is interesting.
Yeah, I feel like I can very much visualize doing that and like that feeling of, wait, I didn't know that was the rule. Sorry. And you're like, I've played that game and it's fun and also nerve-wracking. Yes. You're like, I want to do it right, but it seems like a ridiculous game. I want to be the best at it. I'm going to do my best. I don't know what's happening. Yeah. So great. And your reading of it, it's always fun when you get to hear like either in an audio book or something like this, where you hear the person who wrote it, read it, because you get to hear that voice a little bit more that you like had in your head. Yes.
And my first two books, my first book is called Denton Little's Deathdate. It's a fun sci-fi-ish comedy adventure. I read the audiobook for that and its sequel. And that was so fun getting to kind of marry my acting life with my writing life and bring it all to life. So that's exciting. And this book, the audiobook is read by my wife, Katie, who I mentioned is a writer, actor as well. And she narrates tons of audiobooks. And so she narrated this one. And that was really, really exciting to get to collaborate in that way was a joy.
That's awesome. So where can people, please like plug away, where can people like find all of the things?
Yeah, all the things. I mean, anywhere you get books. There's a new great website called bookshop.org that links to most independent bookstores. So I'm always supporting independent bookstores, but of course you could buy it from barnesandnoble.com. the other place where people buy books, et cetera, et cetera. But in this time, especially support those local businesses. So yeah, Crying Laughing, Denton Little's Deathdate, wherever you buy books, you could go get them. The libraries have them too. It's of course always preferred for you to buy art, but I'm a big fan of libraries, and borrowing books is great too. The libraries aren't open right now. I'm sorry that's not an option, but I know ebooks are available in libraries, so you can borrow an ebook. Or if
where can they get the audio book?
The audiobook, yeah. Same thing wherever you get audiobooks, on Audible, cool. Other places. I'm not a regular audiobook listener myself. I do podcasts and then read the books.
And you do a podcast.
And I do a podcast. Yeah, well, not. You just confused me. I was like, do I still do a podcast?
Is that over?
Well, yes, that version of it.
I brought up this
No. It ended. It's great. It just kind of is on hold, I guess, in a sense. But yes, the Lance and Ray show. That's me and Ray, who I did the sketch comedy show with. We had a podcast for a while. It's been, our last episode was literally came out on election day 2016, and then we just stopped because we couldn't bear to make our podcast with that person as president. No, that it just kind of timed out that way, but
also fair.
Yeah, and then I had started at another kind of brief foray into podcasting at a show called Really Deep Conversations with YA Authors, which you can find, I believe, 3 or 4 episodes on YouTube. Fun conversations, fun interviews, and then just crapped out on making more. But as you know, it's hard to keep this going. That's why I'm so impressed. You got all those interviews. You're doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Got to do all we can do. And Nancy saying everywhere online, so you can find the
everywhere. I'm so glad you're watching, Nancy. Yes, everywhere.
Yes, and I did just order a book from the bookshop online. It's so easy.
Great website.
Yeah, and they don't sponsor me, so this is just my own experience talking. Although, hey, if you're watching and you want to sponsor me, amazing. But I read an article about it that some of the local bookstores right now do appreciate having that form rather than actually buying from the bookshop itself, because they'll package it for you, they'll take care of shipping, and they can take care of these larger orders and these other things that maybe some of the smaller bookshops, because of the pandemic, can't do. And I won't order from some of these other websites that won't be named. I mean, Barnes and Noble's has some great stuff that they do for the Broadway community, so they're cool in my book.
Yeah, Barnes and Noble is cool, and it would be great if Barnes and Noble can stay in existence, because they are very great for the book industry.
So I'm just saying, I'm not endorsing anything, but just that if you can support local, especially right now, they need it so much, and they can.
And think about, you want your local bookstore. These are community hubs. These are wonderful places. You want someone, telling you book recommendations in person and having a conversation with them. I mean, I just love bookstores so much, and obviously support all local businesses right now. But certainly, if you want to read a book and you want to buy a book, it might. I don't even know if it necessarily is always more expensive to buy from local bookstores, because sometimes it just totally depends on the book. But just know that little extra money that it might cost, the difference in book is going to a great cause, is keeping bookstores thriving and alive, especially right now.
Right. Yeah. I bought for my boyfriend's birthday, I bought him the Hamilton Portraits book.
Ooh, nice.
And it's really cool. We looked through all of it, and it was maybe $2 or $3 more on the local shop. And to me, that was no brainer. Yes.
It's just a funny thing right now. And well, in general, even before the pandemic, but just the value people put on art. And in general, we devalue it because it seems like everything is accessible, we should just be able to find a way to get any art for free. Mm-hmm. But doing that is a problem because then people making the art cannot make a living doing this, and there will just be less good art. There just will be, and you have to, or because the people making it will have to get all these other jobs and just have less time to make the art. It's just like, or the only people making art can be people who just have lots of money.
And that's not the voices that we only want to hear.
Correct. That's correct. So that is a big thing I try and talk about. I need to talk about more, but it's like valuing this art, and it's hard. Everyone's tightening their budgets. Of course, this is a supremely uncertain economic time. So understandable if you can't spend money on art, but just like when you can, not to immediately scoff like, oh, why would I buy it there? Like it's $15 instead of $11.
Right.
Just know you're supporting art. You are supporting which, as we all know right now, consuming all sorts of entertainment, art sustains us. Art is important. Art is brings us joy and brings us escape and brings us hope at times when we really need it. So we can't discount that.
I'd say art is the most important thing that we have in our lives right now, besides from our health and loved ones.
Yeah. I agree.
So I always like to end these. This hour went by so fast. Thank you for doing so much fun.
Great. We're having a fun time. I agree.
Great.
Yeah.
So it's always like a combo of like self-promote anything you have to do, which you already did, but if you have anything else, please use this time. And then if there are any charities that you like to talk about.
Oh, that's so good. Let me think about it. Yeah. Okay. Well, I obviously self-promoted. Yes. Charities, there's Let America Vote is a really good one. I mean, I think voting rights, especially as the election approaches, are just so hugely important. Tied into that, there's also Stacey Abrams' organization, Fair Fight, is a great one because, okay, that's the voting rights portion. But then all of these, obviously, like Food Bank NYC, the more donated food banks, I think is huge right now. People need food. I mean, there's so many places that need money right now. It's like a really hard question, but I do worry so much about voting and that whether the election will be fair. And it's very scary, Shoshana.
It is, yes. And I'd filled out my absentee request form.
Me too.
You can do that, no matter where you are.
Vote.org, I think. I would do that. Just to make sure that you can vote, even though a pandemic is going on.
Right. Voting is so important. I'll never forget the day I voted for Barack Obama was one of the highlights. Because I should send you a photo. I was in full USA gear. It was my first time voting for a president. And I went to his inauguration. I got this crazy epic photo of him through the motorcade.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was a seminal moment of getting to vote and being a photographer and spending literally all day at the sideline in DC just so that I could get this one photo, and it worked out perfectly. But it's just voting so important, and not that this is at all a political podcast or video thing at all, but it is important to know that politics have an influence on all of our lives and on artists and on the ability for people to have justice and eat. And there's so many things. So just know that there's so many results from you voting that, your voice matters.
Your voice really matters. And this is really, no matter what your political views are, I don't understand why not everyone's just I do understand, because Republicans feel like if they suppress some votes, that's how they win, because actually Republicans are in the minority now in the country, and they're trying to wield power in unjust ways to continue having power that they shouldn't have. So I answered my own question, but I just think voting does not have to be this side or that side. I just think everyone should vote. That's what a democracy is. Everyone has their voice, and together we the people rule our country.
Well
Yeah.
said.
Well, thanks. It's like insane. Just what's going on is insane. My brain just went there. This was like really nice because like I didn't have.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I feel very fired up.
Yes. But I'm glad we got to talk about voting. I'm glad you left a space there to promote some charity. It's really nice.
Thank you. It's an important thing. I've actually been thinking about, do I like ask the person ahead of time, like to do this way to donate through the YouTube, but I also, on that same note, wanted to leave a space where people could watch these videos and like focus on the conversation and then hear about the charities and go thereafter if that's something that drives them to it.
It's great.
So to let y'all know about next week's amazing guest, this is the SHO Must Go Online, just powers right through. We have Ezra Minas. We have Pulitzer Prize winner Michael R. Jackson.
MRJ, that's great.
So excited. Drew Gasparini.
Sorry, I don't know who Ezra is. Otherwise, I would have done it. Ezra. I'll still do it. Ezra
in Jagged Little Pill.
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
I hear that.
Wonderful person who is trans and is very vocal about like incredible ways to make sure we are protecting the trans community and giving a voice to them, especially on Broadway. Absolutely incredible. And an ensemble member that also understudies for Joe. So hearing them saying, you ought to know, I'm sure brings down the house.
That's cool.
Very, very excited. We also have L. Morgan Lee coming on. Amara Brady, part of the...
Amara! That's awesome.
Excited, who also has their own YouTube series that I'm going to post about in a little bit.
Yes.
So,
cool.
Keep an eye out for that.
Lineup.
I know. And then Al Silver will be coming on because I had to cancel, and she's just a wonderful human. So we will be rescheduling her. So keep an eye out for all of that. And if anyone out there feels like I would love to join this Patreon for this wonderful reporter who's doing this, you can find me at patreon.com/bwaySHO, that's bwaySHO, and become a Showtreon.
Do it.
So that's... Thank you. So you can find this whole series on bwaySHO.com or go to YouTube where you are currently watching this. There will be a whole playlist of The SHO Must Go Online. Whew. So that is me. Thank you, Lance. You are just such a bright light. You are wonderful. And every time I speak with you, I feel like I'm more energized.
That's nice, Shoshana. Well, you too. This was a lovely conversation. Thank you for having me on. And I look forward to watching your show continue to evolve and build an audience and have more amazing guests. It's great.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
And if you're still cool, so you